on your page too, or you just share the page.
So Facebook does not seem to like tagging. So just let me know when you have it on your page,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll go to your page. I got a Facebook tab open. I'll go to your page and then I'll share it that way. Cuz
Okay.
if you tag me in it, it's like I don't know, maybe 1% of my friends list will see it.
Okay. So I'm still going to tag you, but it's going to be on your page right now. So, well, it's going to be on my page right now.
All right, I'm headed over there.
All right. So yeah. So it should be on my page and about about 30 seconds. Welcome all the Facebook viewers. Thank y'all for tuning in. We're going to start the show in about 2 minutes. And y'all just bear with us while we get the show going here. And I'm going to go ahead and switch the microphones to the radio station so you won't be able to hear me within the next minute or so. But when the show comes on, you will be able to hear me. So y'all just bear with me. Thank y'all for tuning in. This should be a really good show. I have my cousin, Allison Denise, on the show. So this is going to be very interesting. Just give us a second, and I will be right with you uh, on the radio station.
God said in His Word that He is a God who will heal us. He is a healing God. But I know you might have questions.
WBISLP 1069, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina. I try to be a better man, but folks just don't understand. Trying to do all I can to deal with this addiction in me. Lord, I want to change. I can't stay the same. But the sins that in my vein is trying its best just to kill me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for tuning in. You're back with another episode of the UTurn Show. I am your host, Richard Taylor, here on Awesome Radio, www.wbisawesomeradio.org. You can go to that website and download all of our apps, either on the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and Alexa. Also, feel free to check us out here in Greenville, the local Roku channel, GPAT23 as well. And also, this is a live interactive show. I have a very, very, very special guest tonight. I want to welcome all of our Facebook listening audience as well, YouTube, and the radio show. So let me introduce to some and present to others. Special guest Allison Denise, aka the Love Coach, aka the Petite Powerhouse. How you doing?
I'm good, cuz I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great, doing great. And she
Awesome.
reminded me, this is my cousin, so we are family. She does a lot of blogging, a lot of talking, a lot of coaching, a lot of events. She's very, very, very knowledgeable on this subject. And we're going to just jump right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships, definitely the relationship dynamic in the Black community, some of the benefits and the detriments, some of the deficiencies, some of the efficiencies. But first, I also like to always give my my audience a glimpse of who I'm talking with. So, Alice and Denise, give the people a little bit of background, especially about the childhood. And I always ask my guests about fatherhood. So,
Okay.
as a young lady, was what how was your childhood life growing up? Was your father in the home, and what kind of benefits did you receive from that?
Got you. So I am from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Very proud of it. Went to my cousin's rival school, go Warriors. Um,
Okay. Oh yeah.
and
Right.
and yeah, my childhood was pretty. It was pretty uneventful. You know, I had both of my parents in the home. I was a daddy's girl, very close to him. I can't recall anything that I did that he wasn't in or involved in. If I was a pom pom girl, he was on the sidelines every football game, every basketball game. When I was playing my clarinet, he was in the bleachers at every concert or recital. When I went to college, he would get off work in Rocky Mount midnight on Fridays, midnight every other Friday, and would immediately drive 2.5 hours to come pick me up from A&T so I could
Okay.
spend the weekend at home. We were very close, very close. Um, I did have, some issues due to me having albinism and not many people in our city having that. I think for most of my life, I was the only one.
Okay.
So, there were some issues there, but in terms of, my dad, my parents, always had them. They were always there for me.
Okay. And you mentioned albinism because that's something
Hmm.
I don't, I rarely hear you talk about, but I think you made a couple of posts about it. So
Hmm.
you seem very, very comfortable in your skin,
Hmm.
now. So how did you come to that point? Because you said that you had some issues as a child. So at what point did you accept who you were, and how did you get to that point?
Um, so what you're seeing now probably happened within the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 9, 10 years.
Mhm.
So it was something that was always there. Of course, there may have been more insecurity as a child, and then going into, high school, and then going into college. There may have, it may have started to decrease a little bit, but the insecurities, um, feeling self-conscious about certain things. I think it's been, I didn't start wearing shorts again until 2 years ago,
Okay.
because I was, self-conscious about my legs and things like that. So it's been a steady progression, but I think it's been about 9 or 10 years since I said, look, this is me. This is who I am. I'm not getting another body, so I might as well enjoy the one I'm in. And so that's what's happened.
Okay. Okay. So well, evidently you never had a shortage or a problem with attracting men. Um, if they were the right men, we're going to get into that. But you mentioned, uh, and I do want to say, hey, Sharice, as well, Jamel, Lashley,
What's up, Jamel? Good to see
yeah,
you.
and
Team AD.
Reese Boyd Jackson, not for nothing, but when I first looked at you, I instantly saw you as a very beautiful lady, very attractive, respectfully with nice attributes. And yes, she is very beautiful, uh,
Thank you.
as I would say about my cousin. So, uh, excuse me. So, but yeah, so growing up with a father in the home, once again,
Hmm.
it's almost an anomaly. I was the product of a two-parent home. Um, what what did you see that may have been different from you than other people who may not have had fathers, or from your work? What do you see some of the deficiencies that not having a father, not having that fatherly love, not having that fatherly involvement? What kind of deficiencies may occur from that, either as a child or as an adult or in relationships?
So I think the major difference I saw was things that seemed normal to me that I didn't realize until I got out of college weren't necessary. They were more of a goal for women. So, like for instance, my mom, she stopped working full time when I was 10. So from, I guess, fifth grade all the way through graduation, my mom was always around. I didn't have to worry about her not being able to make something because she couldn't get off work, for example, or us not being able to do things together because they couldn't figure out how to work their schedules. My mom was always available, And for all of the important events, my dad just figured out how to get there. He always figured out how to get there, how to show up for, like I said, the events that I was in, things I participated in. Um, and I think the bigger thing for me is, my dad was he was a man's man. And, with just me and my sister in the house, of course, there weren't a lot, we weren't athletes. So there wasn't the opportunity to, go to football and see your kid on the field and stuff like that. At best, he got to see me, out during halftime.
Okay.
But he was still there, like he was watching his son playing football.
Yeah.
And so that said a lot. And there were a lot of other parents there, or a lot of other kids rather, who, for one reason or another, they didn't get to have any parent there. And to have my dad there, be the one to take us every Friday, stay with us, to always know that we had that, and to see other, some of my other friends, hey, Mr. Burden, do you mind taking us home? Or their parents being okay being around us because they knew we had a father figure there. You don't think that that's a big deal because it's just normal to you. But when I went off to college and started seeing how many of the new friends I made, they were like, "Oh my God, your dad's here again? You know your dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know my dad. What do you mean?" What do you mean? So that was when I got my first glimpse into how important it is, or how rare it was to have the two-parent household. I enjoyed the Cosby Show, for example, but there were a lot of kids who watched it like it was their only glimpse into what a family looked like. And most of the friends that I had, with the exception of one, most of my friends came from two-parent homes, so we didn't know it was a big deal until we got around other people who were like, "No, Allison, that is a big deal. I haven't seen my father since I was 2. I don't know who my father is." And so that's when I think it really started to, really get drilled home that we grew up a little bit differently.
And so when you grew up, eventually you got married.
Mm-hmm.
So how old were you when you got married?
So I was 27. And actually, and this is something that I've talked about, I didn't want to get married when I left home. I didn't want to get married, and I didn't want to have kids.
You talking about never in life?
Never in life. I was really okay with never experiencing either. One of the things that people don't understand is, even in two-parent homes, there's no perfection. There's still, it doesn't matter how you grew up. There was still a struggle. There was still some type of deficiency there. And what I saw were two people who loved us, but probably would have been better off choosing to get in healthy relationships with other people, so we would know what it looked like.
Okay.
They weren't abusive to each other. I just noticed that, very early, I just noticed that they may not have been the best fit.
Okay.
So it felt good to have them both in the household, but the other side of that was, I walked away thinking marriage was like the death of dreams and children were the death of goals. And so when I left, I was like, "No, I'm good. I'll shack up. Not getting married. No children."
So, yeah, but I mean that's I mean, but during that day though,
Mm-hmm.
that was the norm. You got married, especially if somebody got pregnant. You got married, you had a
Yep.
family, and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
about happiness. It was about family. You know.
You're right.
But these days, and we'll get into that, I guess, further on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just seems like once again, there's every well, everybody's a click away these days. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to say, "Well, yeah, I'm not a good fit for you. Let me swipe right." You know what I'm saying? Let me send
Right.
you a message. So it's easy to say somebody's not a good fit or not work it out. When back then, okay, you had no choice. This was your husband. This was your wife.
Mm-hmm.
You dealt with it. You made the best. There wasn't a whole bunch of requirements, a whole bunch of must-haves. I like you. You like me. Let's get it together. But
Mm-hmm.
let's let's go with your stint, I guess we would call it, in marriage,
Uh-huh.
because that's part of your story, right?
Yeah.
That's a major part of your story. So, I know you talked about it before, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked you about it before the show. So your marriage didn't, I guess, go the way that you planned, right?
Nah,
So
nah,
how
it did
long were
not.
y'all married for?
Let me see. We were together for 8, married for 5. Have we reached 5? Yeah, married for 5.
So you were together for 8. So at year 3, you guys got married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so tell us about that relationship and how did it.
So the relationship wasn't bad. I was married to a very sweet man who didn't want to grow up. And at the time, the version of me that I was, because I think I just said this a few days ago, but I've had 3 lives. I'm on life 3 right now in terms
Okay.
of the iterations. And so when I met him, that was still during my first life. And my first life, I was still, very much of the mindset, okay, we're married, it's supposed to work. And I also took a lot of pride in how smart I was, how intelligent I was. I took a lot of pride in that. And so the areas where he didn't necessarily want to step up, I was stepping up, and I was okay with that. I didn't know that it was unbalanced because I had a lot of my self-esteem due to the self-consciousness that I had and the low self-esteem that I had about my appearance. One of the things people couldn't touch me in was my intelligence and my education. And so the areas where he probably should have stepped up, I was already doing it. I had lived on my own. I'd had a lease. I'd had apartments. I'd been to college. I'd already moved away from home. I was a whole grown woman. And so some of the things that he probably should have done, I was doing because I was used to doing them. I took pride in doing them, and that was it. And, it wasn't a control thing. It wasn't I want to show him I don't need him. That's a lot of the nonsense that we see going on right now. I just legitimately enjoyed doing it. But what ended up happening is because it was imbalanced and because I wasn't meant to do that role by myself, I started getting exhausted. Now, it didn't show up in me getting tired physically. It showed up in me becoming more resentful of the things that I was doing, becoming more resentful of feeling like I was married but doing everything myself. And it really drilled home once I had my son. There's something about when that mother button is turned on, like you really just start seeing things from a different set of eyes. And so I got to a place where I just had to accept. I kept pushing it under the rug, but I had to accept, okay, you're raising one son, but it's like you have 2 in the house.
Okay.
And so I eventually, I did try to have several conversations, multiple conversations, as is with those who aren't ready to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have to say this, I do see this more with men than women. I do see women too, so don't applaud yet, my sister. But I do see more men, they don't tend to hear their woman until she's done talking.
Okay.
There's a lot of brushing off and pushing off, and when we're calm, we don't seem to see a change. But the minute we say something or separate or something like that, that's when we have your attention. But at that point,
Too late.
we're just kind of over it. And so I eventually asked him for a separation. Now, for those not from North Carolina, you have to be separated for a year and a day before you can get divorced. So my intention wasn't to get divorced. My intention was for us to start going to counseling, for him to start doing, start to show me that he could do more things around the house so I felt less alone, so he would do more with his son so I felt less alone. We had gotten to the point where he wouldn't even get up to take his son to daycare. I had to move my son to a different daycare because even though he went to work 4 hours after I did, he didn't want to let the bed go to take his own kid up the street. And that got old. And so I just wanted him to understand I need a partner. I don't just need a ring in your last name. I need a partner. But he decided to try to kill me instead. And so August 20th of 2008, I was attacked with a baseball bat and a knife. I was left in our home alone. I had to call 911 by myself. I realized how bad my injuries were when I heard EMT walk in through the front door of my house, and one of them let out this huge gasp. Um, they ended up moving me. I let out this scream. I woke up 3 days later, and I had a punctured lung. I had 24 staples to my skull. They thought that my jaw might have to be wired shut. They thought I might lose hearing in my left ear. They were concerned about me possibly losing vision in my left eye. And I ended up going through 2 surgeries for the punctured lung because the first time it was reinflating, they started doing x-rays and realized the knife that he used to stab me was dirty, so my lung was inflating with bacteria. So they had to go back in, scrape the bacteria out, deflate my lung again, and I had to start the whole process over. And for the first, I think it was the first 12 to 18 hours, my case was not put in the domestic violence department. It was put in the homicide department. They were like, she's 5 feet. She might be 120 pounds. There's no way she's going to survive this. There's not enough of her to survive this. And so after about 12 to 18 hours, police finally said, okay, she might make it. Let's take her out of homicide and let's just go find him. And so that's pretty much how my marriage ended. I wasn't one. I say domestic violence attack because I did not receive abuse on a regular basis. He snapped. He snapped, and that was the result. So I wasn't one who was beaten behind the scenes. I wasn't being abused behind the scenes. He snapped, and he tried to take me out. And I definitely tell that part of the story because I want people. There's a lot of judgment around domestic violence. There's a lot of people who say, oh, well, she should have left. There are other people who say a certain type of woman is the only type of woman who was abused, or a certain type of man is the only type of man who was abused. And I'm here to tell you that I didn't fit any of the stereotypes. I didn't fit any of the the stereotypical what most people think an abused woman looks like. I had both of my parents. I did have my father in my life. I had a whole degree. I was working a job. Very confident in those areas where I knew that I was great. I didn't fit the statistics. So I want people to understand that it doesn't matter, the gender. It doesn't matter the salary, the income bracket, or anything.
Take a quick break real quick.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Awesome Radio 106.9 FM.
Join the cause to free James Richardson, another black man from Pitt County in prison, wrongfully accused and convicted. A rally will be held to free James Richardson on Saturday, July 30th, 11 o'clock a.m. on the steps of the Pitt County Courthouse, 100 West 3rd Street, Greenville. Join us as we stand united and call on our elected officials to overturn James Richardson's wrongful conviction and immediately release him from prison. That's July 30th, Saturday, 11 o'clock a.m., a rally to free James Richardson on the steps of the Pitt County Courthouse, Greenville. To learn more about this cause and to volunteer, visit change.org/free James Richardson. This announcement paid for by the Committee to Free James Richardson.
This ain't your plan for me to die up in these streets. Oh Lord, can you help me?
And we are back here at 106.9 FM Awesome Radio. I'm your host, Richard Taylor. I have a very special guest, Allison Denise. Couple of comments. Your cousin, my mother, Aletta Taylor, says, thank you for preserving. Thank God for preserving you. Vigil Williams. I have to say, you're absolutely right. Jerry Baker, peace and blessings to everyone. What up, Styles? And both parents make a big difference. Leslie Duzzy, what up, cuzzo? I thank y'all for tuning in. And getting back to the attack. So you said you asked for that separation. Was that like the night after, the next week, or
It was a month.
Afterward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And were you just
Yeah.
laying in the bed, or do you remember how it happened, or you just?
Um, so it was shortly after Logan had turned 2, so it would have been July of 2008. And what sealed it for me, he had gotten to a point where he there were certain things I couldn't wear. He was starting to tell me things that I couldn't wear. And there was one day that I came home and stuff had still been rocky, but I had decided, okay, let me get home, let me get Logan ready for bed, and let's just try to have a nice evening together. And so I got home and I ran into I gave him a kiss and I, jumped in the shower so I could go ahead and get Logan ready real quick. That was my mindset. And when I came out of the shower, he was in the hamper smelling my underwear. I was like, what are you doing? Well, you ran in here like you were trying to wash some Negro off you. Oh, that's what we doing now?
Okay.
That's what we doing? So that something in me just kind of shut down at that point. It was like, I am literally sitting around here. I don't even have time to cheat,
Okay.
even if I wanted to. And I'm running through my whole schedule and I'm like, there's no way you don't see how busy I am because you're that much out of the way in terms of support and partnership.
Okay.
And now you're accusing me of this when I came home to have a nice evening with you. So at that point, I think it was probably a week after that I said, yeah, let's just separate for a minute. And I proved it. Like I went and found someone. We had just bought a house. I'd found someone to rent the house for a year. I never put him on any child support. I never drew up any separation papers. I didn't do any of that. And, there were other women who thought I was crazy, but I said, I'm not begging anyone to take care of their kid. I'm not going to go and ask a judge to make this man take care of his kid. He knows his kid is here, and whatever he doesn't do, I'm going to do. So so it couldn't have been easier for him is my point. It couldn't have been easier for him to see that I did at some point want us back together. And it couldn't have been easier for him to know that I wasn't trying to get money or anything crazy like that. I was legitimately just tired of feeling like I was in the marriage by myself. And that was just the way he chose to respond.
Okay. So after the attack, I mean, I'm sure you probably had a months of healing, maybe even years or whatever. I'm not sure. So, what was it like? Like, of course, you probably were bitter. You probably was afraid to date. Like, what was it like? Getting into that next relationship, or how long did it take you to say, okay, I'm going to try this again?
So I actually ended up dating relatively quickly. I used to say it was a mistake, but I actually see where it was a benefit. There was a guy that I had become friends with at work, and
Work husband.
we actually, yeah, work husband. It was a work husband, and what drew me to him was he caught a lot of unnecessary drama because there was still a lot of religious indoctrination that I was around. A lot of people around me who were still indoctrinated and were of the mindset that a woman shouldn't have any male friends if she was married. And I believed that. And when I got married, I had actually let go of a lot of my male friends. But what people didn't understand is most of my friends were men, growing up. And so I let a lot of that go. And I was just unwilling to do it again when it circled back around. And so he would still come visit, even though the relatives who were in my home at the time were rude to him. He just wanted to make sure I was okay, and that meant a lot. And so we did start dating, and I think we dated about 2 years. But it started to be the beginning of the second life. I didn't know it, but it started to become the beginning of the second life. It just ended up where we're not a good fit. Once I started to get my bearings back together and get things back on track, I started to see some elements of him that showed some hidden insecurities that he had, and the way that he was choosing to let those things come out, it was just a lot of arrogance. And arrogance is one energy that I physically can't be around. Like, it actually makes me ill. Arrogance makes me ill. And so, you know, we, I know it sounds crazy, but I can legitimately be around any other energy, but arrogance.
Okay.
So, but you know, after that, you know, I took some time off and, you know, was still heavily involved in church at the time. So I was just, you know, taking care of Logan and going to therapy and learning new life as a single mother, and at the time a property owner, because I still had this house, and now I'm having to, you know, be landlord too. Just focusing on the choir, singing in the choir, singing leads at the choir, at the weddings in the choir, funerals at the choir, just, you know, whatever I could do. But I started to pick up that it was time for me to make a change, probably about 3 years in.
3 years in. So
3 years, yeah.
You made another leap. I won't call it a leap, but you know, it could be considered a leap.
I mean, it actually was. It was.
So you met another gentleman, and you actually relocated.
I did. So I had gotten to the point where I was ready to leave Greensboro. And what most people didn't know is I never planned to be in Greensboro longer than 4 years. My goal was Charlotte. Greensboro was supposed to be a pit stop. Go to college, get your degree, go to Charlotte. And so I was definitely in Greensboro longer than those 4 years. And I was ready to make that change. I was like, Logan is 4. He hasn't started school yet. And so I was actually looking for positions in Charlotte when a couple of friends from my old company started encouraging me to get on eHarmony. Okay. You know, you've been single for a while. It's time for you to, and you got to let me know, because you know I do podcasts, so I don't do breaks. So you got to let me know when you got to take another break.
Yeah, we got 2:15.
Okay.
What's going on, Brian? BD?
What's up, BD?
All right. A couple of her followers. She got a large following, by the way. So
are we good? Okay.
Got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. So they encouraged me to get on eHarmony. I said, look, I've met losers for free. I'm not paying to meet more. I'm not going to do it. And so then they ended up telling me that they had met their husbands. I thought they were pretty cute couples. I ended up getting on. And the day that I was about to sign off was when I met this gentleman. And we connected very quickly. We had a whole lot in common. And at the time, again, very, very, very focused on church, Christianity, and he was as well. Okay. And so every time we started talking about getting together and meeting, you know, he made it clear up front that he couldn't leave Texas because of some parameters he had to put in his divorce decree surrounding his children. Okay. And so I was like, well, I wanted to go to Charlotte, but maybe I'm supposed to go to Dallas. And so, you know, when I thought about it, I kept running into the story of Ruth, the book of Ruth, and how Ruth went into this new city where she didn't know everybody. Anytime I had this thought, I started hearing a sermon about Ruth.
Right.
So I was like, okay, maybe that's what I should do. Are we at 2 minutes yet? I can wait.
Yeah, we got about 45 seconds left.
Okay. So I ended up moving, and I think within the first 3 to 6 months, I started to notice something different. And we can stop there. I can come back and talk about it.
Come back right after the break, but we got a lot more to talk about. Special thanks to my guest, Allison Denise, and I thank you all for tuning in. All the listeners, Jay, Virgil, Felicia, BD, Sharice, Jamel, all of you guys, thank y'all for tuning in. We're gonna be right back after this break. We're here on 106.9 FM Awesome Radio here in Greenville. We'll be right back with you.
Time and season is everything. It's never too late to learn. You can now enroll at Kim International Bible College. Don't miss your chance to start on the journey you've been waiting for. This is an awesome way to grow and study the Word of God. We offer online day and evening classes. This is not only a great opportunity for leaders in the kingdom, but also an opportunity for any born-again believer who just wants to know more about the God you serve. We offer offer open enrollment, so therefore you can enroll at any time. Don't miss this opportunity. Have you been out of school for many years? No problem. Are you not good with technology? Not a problem. Don't allow your age to restrict you from your goal. We have students of all ages. We're a college that will work with you. That's our motto. We will work with you, but we expect you to do the work. So what are you waiting for? Contact us today. 252-446-0842. That's 252-446-0842. Or visit our website, www.kemibc.com. KEMIBC.com. 252-446-0842.
And we are back here on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. I'm your host, Richard Taylor, here with my special guest, Allison Denise. Brian BD Scott says, Allison, you're locked on. I guess you are a Facebook user, right?
Yeah, that's me.
All right. So, getting back to the story. So, you started finding, once again, I think y'all
Yeah.
there's some different things. This guy that you moved to Texas to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened next?
So that's a really long story, but the most important part is that he turned out to be my first experience with the word narcissist, with the narcissistic personality disorder, and with what narcissistic abuse was like. I had never heard those terms before. And so I think it was after, our longest breakup was a year. I think during that year was when I finally just started Googling certain statements. What does it mean when this, and what does it mean when that? And that's when I finally started to figure out what was going on. And one of the reasons it took so long is because some of the feelings that I had, I just kept brushing off as homesickness, because Dallas is nothing like North Carolina. Completely different environment. And so I kept thinking the sadness I was feeling and a lot of the emotional stuff I was going through, I kept attributing it to me being homesick. I didn't know I was dealing with a narcissist until that point.
All right. So, with the relationships, and I heard you say one thing on one of your lives, or I think you was at a speaking engagement. You said, I have made some terrible mistakes in dating. And what was that the point that you decided to become a self-love and relationship coach? Or at what point did you decide, okay, I've made some mistakes, so let me teach other people what not to do?
Yeah. So like we talked about off the air, I've definitely made some bad decisions. And like we discussed, there are a lot of people who have issues being able to admit that they're wrong, and that's something that is happening more on the women's side. I have to be honest with that. I have said mistakes, but I've had to back up and understand that I was making decisions based off of the information I had at the time. Had I had better information, I would have made better decisions. And one of the biggest flaws that I had was still walking around with a lot of self-esteem issues, walking around with a lot of self-confidence issues. And one of the things about narcissists is they target people who are amazing but don't know it. And they pick up that person doesn't know it. But they're drawn to it, but once they get it, they become jealous of it. So then they try to take that awesomeness away from you, for lack of a better word, through the way that they talk and the way that they gaslight and the way that they discard and disappear and do a lot of nonsense. And when you've never been around it and don't even know it exists, I was a beautiful target for him. And so once I ended that relationship and moved on with other people, I did start to notice a theme. And I would just talk a lot on Facebook. I would put up these different posts, And then people would inbox me and say, look, what you're saying is really helping. Have you thought about creating a blog? I was like, well, no, but let's see. And so I created a blog called Be Still and Move, where I was basically just talking about what I was dealing with through that relationship. And this was, again, before I knew I was dealing with a narcissist. Once I realized that that's what I was dealing with, the focus started to become bringing more awareness to narcissistic abuse, because I was just positive I wasn't the only person who had run across one of these individuals and didn't know it because they didn't even know it existed. And so I started to bring awareness to that, which then started to have people coming and asking me certain relationship questions. And I still don't know how I had the answers. I have this way of, and the only thing I can say is it's a gift. It's a gift, and I had to go through the stuff that I went through to pull the gift out. But I have this way of being able to translate what a brother might be trying to get his woman to understand, and she's not getting it. I have this way of translating what she's trying to get him to understand so that he gets it, so that they can figure out, y'all don't have a relationship issue, you have a communication issue. Let's work on this. You don't have to break up over this. And so that just started to spiral into people saying, can you come and talk to me, with me and my boyfriend? Can you come and help me and my husband decide if we need to separate or stay together? Can you help me figure out if I need to leave this relationship? Am I being abused and I don't know it? And the coaching just kind of started off from there.
All right. And so one quick question, then we'll move on to the next one. So in a short version, what are some of the, or what is a narcissist, or what are some of the characteristics of narcissistic behavior? The short version.
Narcissists, somewhere down the line, were either made to feel completely insignificant or way too significant. In either case, they now want to attach themselves to people that have what they don't. Then they want to strip it away so that you walk away feeling just as empty as they feel every day.
Okay. So they pretty much want to be better than whoever they're with, or feel better than whoever, or make that person feel small. So, and we talked about, and would that be correct? Somewhat in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
We talked about the divide, I guess. I would call it the gender divide, because every time I turn around, it's a Facebook post with women saying, yeah, ladies, these men ain't nothing. Don't settle, sis. We can do bad by ourselves. But then the next day, oh, brothers, these girls ain't nothing. You know, we got to watch out for them. I'll be better by myself. So, first of all, where did this start? How did it start? And how do we fix it?
So it started from selfishness. It continues because of selfishness. And the way that we fix it is to stop being selfish. Okay. That's pretty much the quickest way to say it. And like you and I discussed, one of the reasons I have migrated more to self-love coaching from relationship coaching is because I realized that most of the relationship issues I saw were not relationship issues. There were two people together who didn't know themselves, didn't like themselves, barely knew themselves, but just knew they didn't want to be alone. And so now you have these two people who are meeting the need of not being alone, but don't understand, yeah, but you got these other needs that you're not even aware of, that you're trying to brush down. If you are, you're afraid to be by yourself. And if you don't like being with you, why would anybody else? And so when we talk about the great divide and the high value men this and the queen that and the I need this and pay this, and when we talk about that, it's all boiling down to selfishness. Everybody is wanting to play a game, and they want to play the game in a way that they win. But what they don't understand is, in a game, you got to have an opponent. And no one stops to think about that. So you're out here wanting a partner, but you're playing a game. So by default, the partner is going to be your opponent. Y'all will never win when you're just trying to get the upper hand. You're not trying to love them. They're not trying to love you. They're just trying to figure out, how do I get as much as I need to without any emotional connection, because I've been hurt before. And they're trying to do the same thing. You're never going to move forward that way.
I have learned a lot from you already. Me too, Virgil. We need that. What's up, Pat? How you doing? Thanks for joining. So with that, right? And you mentioned high value. I'm gonna get on the Kevin Samuel thing. Hopefully, you you can give me not even the Kevin Samuel, but the message and the things that I saw from watching his show deal with men. But you mentioned one thing. You said, a lot of people have a problem having accountability. You said you see that more often on the women's side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I
Why
did.
why do you think that is, and how does society contribute to that, in your opinion?
So I have been following Iyanla Van Zant for a long, long time. And she has a book called The Value in the Valley, one of her first books.
Okay.
And she talks about the connection between specifically black women never wanting to admit that they're wrong. And it goes back to childhood. And I experienced this myself. In childhood, we're made to feel that our mistakes have these colossal consequences.
Okay.
Something as simple as, breaking a glass, we're made to feel like that's going to be the end of the world. If we drop a cup of milk, we're made to think that that is going to be the end of the world. And so what happens as a result is we get so tired of being beat down, but we don't get the opportunity to fight back as kids because we know what'll happen. We grow up with this mindset that we can't be told when we're making a mistake because we were made to feel that our mistakes were an extension of our value. The mistake we were never taught that the mistakes were separate from our identity. It was just something we did. It's not who we are.
Okay.
And so what ends up happening is when you try to tell a woman that she's done something incorrectly, she immediately gets defensive. And it's not because she's not wanting to be told that she's wrong. What she's hearing is, you're about to attack who I am again. I'm not going through that again. I'm not going through anybody else trying to tell me that I'm a screw up, that I'm a mess up or anything. I'm just going to tune you out because we haven't learned that our mistakes don't define our value. They're just something that we've done.
Okay. So in order to not feel that feeling of failure or useless, you would deny it, or people would deny it until the end, rather than say, hey, I made a mistake and I'm sorry.
Exactly.
And you mentioned something about high value. But first, I'm gonna start, on the female side, because I've heard this said before that women of today have traded men for their careers, meaning, and I think you talked about this on the strong. We're raising strong women these days. Um, it would is there any credence to that? Because I do see a lot of successful women who are taking trips, starting businesses, buying homes, but they're alone. And
So,
yeah, so because now hear me on this, because I've
okay.
had people who I'm close to say, well, yeah, because if a man can't, and this goes back to the high value, if a man doesn't have this, and the other, I don't need him. But 9 times out of 10, if a man already has this, that, and the other, he either has who he wants to be with already, or wants to play the field. So you may have women who have education, have businesses, but are passing up on that guy who may works for the city and is very good money. He may not make 500,000, but he is parlayed his 50,000 a year job into $100,000 savings and some investments. But because he doesn't meet that mode of success, a lot of women may look over him and say, "Well, no, he's not in the corporate world like I am. He doesn't have a job.
Right.
He doesn't." So, is that a thing? And let's get to it. Let's get to it.
So it's bull. Let me just answer the question. No, that is not a thing. It is complete and total bull. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. So I am a woman who is now mainly focused on men who make six figures.
Okay.
Let me tell you why, though.
Yes.
Most women don't care what a man makes. Remember when I said in the beginning that we have a problem where men don't hear us until we stop talking?
Yes.
This is one of the biggest areas where that's happening.
Okay.
So for every woman that you hear, and I'm not going to say that it's all of the women, but I will say it's a majority. The
Okay.
majority of women who have this mindset have experienced one of two things, and I've experienced both.
Okay.
They've either been the person who was the ride or die for the brother who was coming up, the brother who didn't have a lot of money, and then the minute that brother started making the money he wanted to make, he promptly dumped her for the chick who wouldn't deal with him when he was broke.
Okay.
We're not obligated to keep going through that pain multiple times to prove anything. The second thing that has probably happened is what I experienced more times than not. I have never cared what a brother made. I've never cared if he made more than me or less than me. He has always cared every single time. It has ended up being a problem every single time. I'm not a woman who throws money in a man's face. I'm not a woman who says, I don't need you. I'm not a woman who does any of those things. And yet I have still run into multiple men from multiple states, multiple backgrounds, multiple educational levels, who the minute they found out if I made more than them, it always ended up being a problem. And you get tired of constantly telling a brother, I care about who you are, not what you have. And that person's still doing nonsensical stuff that hurts you. And you understand that it's because they're insecure, but you get to a point where you're done caring about it. So now, if that is what is so important to you, then fine. That's what I'll wait for also. Now, I still don't care.
Okay.
But what we have to understand is, number one, men, stop using money to get a woman. What is hilarious to me are the amount of men who use gold digger bait, and then they're mad when they end up with gold diggers. You want to tell her about your car. You want to tell her about your house. You want to tell her how much you make. I've had brothers send me their check stubs through Messenger. But then you end up with a woman who just wants you to get her nails done, get her hair done, take her on trips, fly her out. You do that, and you like all women. No, the women that you are attracting, because you're using that bait. So is the issue that women have a problem with education, or is the issue that men are upset that they're now running into more women who don't take the bait? And now you got to find new game. Now you got to actually present who you are, your character, your loyalty, your behavior, your level of accountability, because now you can't just shut us up with a trip to the salon.
Now, I agree with everything you said, but there are still women who want that for the wrong reasons, like you said, the gold diggers, or
Mm-hmm.
that superficial or that image conscious woman that say, okay, well,
Right?
so you do have those, and
Mm-hmm.
with those, with that concept, like you mentioned, high value, like a certain woman may say, okay, well, y'all want a man 6 figure, 6 foot tall,
Uh-huh.
and whatever, has this, has that, but are not willing to look at his character. Look at his ability to care for her, his morals, his values. Does he want a family? Does he want to have? So, a lot of times, and I may be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but like from my perception, the standards are, okay. Well, you meet a man. Hey, what does he do? It's not who is he. The first question is what he can do. Can he provide for you? Not who is, because I know a lot of great providers, a lot of men who make 6 figures, but they're not good men. So
I agree.
if we're basing, the value of a man, or as Kevin Samuel's favorite thing, a high value, I think we're starting off on the wrong foot with measuring a man by, you know, how much does he make, just like his badges, for a man to look at a woman and say, hey, she's look good. She's 5'5", thick in the thighs. That's the one I want, without looking at her character. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It does make sense. And so the way that I'll respond to that is this. I am not one who is into hooking up. I don't do hookups. I don't do one night stands. I don't do any of that. As a matter of fact, right now I'm celibate. No one is going to change my mind. I don't care how fine they are, how tall they are. I know what I want, and I'm not giving it up until I get it. The reason I share that is we have to stop dating, and we have to stop being in these dating streets like we're victims. The women who have that mindset, let me tell you another thing that we see. Those women are also the ones that always have a date.
Definitely.
So to my brothers, who's making you date them? Who's making you date the women who are telling you up front that they just care about what you make? Your ego. Your ego, the fact that you have your ego attached to your paycheck and attached to your salary, and the fact that you don't know that you're good enough on your own. You won't take the time to find a woman who tells you that you're good enough by yourself, because it's easier to shut the other woman up who just wants your money. So this is still one of those, like we talked about, everything is intertwined. Gold diggers will stop being gold diggers when they stop being picked.
Hold on, radio audience. We're going to be right back with you next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is 106.9 FM. Don't go anywhere, Facebook listeners.
Lord, I need.
Okay, can you hear me?
I hear you. Uh-uh. Mm-mm.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So now, we come back. The radio show has ended. Um, so now we can, get into some of those deepest. But remember, it's still a family-oriented show.
I got you.
So,
I got you.
One of my brothers, Tracy Monroe, you better believe women want six-figure men over average earners. Kevin Samuels made a career of that. Now he's a Kevin Samuels follower, so he may be a little bit biased, but I've heard women, I've talked to women as well, who said, well, I agree with some of the things he said. She said, I don't watch the show for him. I watch the show to see what kind of women we're calling from. So what do you think about his message? Because and this is just one example that I saw where a woman said, okay, I want a man who makes six figures. He can't have any kids and blah, blah, blah. And then he would ask her, okay, well, how many kids do you have? Well, I have 3 children. Well, how many men? 3 men. So he was basically, I guess calling out expectations that the person didn't even meet themselves. So I don't know your opinion. I haven't heard you speak about, him or even his message. But what do you think about him and his message in a nutshell?
So I didn't talk about him because I didn't think he was worth the energy.
Okay.
What I will say, since you've asked, I never had a problem with what his intent was.
Okay.
I always had a problem with his delivery. Yeah. And this is one of the issues that I have. You don't have to beat us down. This is where, and we talked about this offline, you talked about what can we do to bridge the gap. What I need my brothers to understand is, specifically black women, I can't speak for any other woman, I can only speak for black women because that's what I am. A lot of us are beat down from childhood. A lot of us are already made to feel like our feelings don't matter, our thoughts don't matter. A lot of us have gone through that, and I don't say that for sympathy. I say it so you have a point of reference. We don't want the black man to automatically be sympathetic, even though that is something that we would love to experience. But I want you to understand that a lot of us have been taught too harshly for so long that when you have a woman willing to get on a phone and talk to someone, I'm not saying that in that example, I'm not saying that her mindset was right. I'm saying that she didn't have to be put down for it. There's no need to ever say a woman is a level 3 or a 5 at best or anything. Like we don't need that.
Right.
And for all of the followers, what y'all don't understand is he didn't start off that way. He fell victim to wanting likes. He fell victim to likes and wanting to be monetized, and y'all ate it up.
Yep.
And to the sisters who are watching, and I don't want to offend anybody who chose to listen to him, but here's something that I've learned. One of the things that I've learned is, as frustrating as it may be to hear certain things people say, I now spend more time watching who agrees,
Hmm.
because that's who you'll be dealing with. You weren't going to deal with old dude, but who was following him. And the bulk of men, I'm not saying it was every man, but the bulk of men who followed him were hurt, butt hurt, and still had bitterness over how they were treated. And they didn't want to change. They didn't want to be different. They just wanted to tune in to finally see a woman hurt the way that they felt a woman hurt them. That's not how we heal. That's not how we move forward.
Definitely.
It's not. I'm sorry that that woman hurt you, but wanting to see another woman experience pain, that's not how you heal. That's transference of pain. That's not healing. No one should want that from any level. And again, to the women who just want money, who just want to take advantage of you, here's something else that I know black men always have. Most black men have one woman who's got a gold digger radar. Most of the men who have been hurt by a gold digger had one woman in their life who told them to leave that chick alone. But the thing about gold diggers is they also know what to get your attention. So to my brothers, I know that you were created to be visual creatures. I know that you were created where sex is a need for you and not a want. I get it. I'm not one of the women who's going to try to say that that's not a real thing. You also have to understand that any gifts you have can be a curse when it's not balanced. So if you're only lust driven, gold diggers know to keep their butts in the gym or to go get on someone's table and get a BBL, because they know as long as they got the thinnest waist, the biggest booty, the biggest breasts, you're going to give them attention. You want to fix that? Stop giving that attention. Because those women are just wanting the attention of men. If you start showing them through your dating practices that you no longer date that type of woman, those women will change. But because those are the women who are not home alone on Friday night, Saturday night, weekends, holidays, 4th of July, white parties, or whatever, because they're the ones not alone, you're giving the impression that that's what's winning. Y'all want to lead? Lead.
Okay. Alana Moore says, I always watch this show to study the black woman who called in. I learned that a lot of women had no spiritual covering and was fascinated by the way they carried themselves. However, like you said, I never got offended by his intent, but I also never got offended by his delivery because I am able to eat the meat and spit out the bones. He was speaking partial truth. Women are allowed to voice themselves all the time. Even if no one listens, we still talk. Thank you so much, Alana. Um, there's a once again there's a dynamic to this relationship thing. um oh yeah, with this and brother Tracy brought up what I mentioned earlier, where they
Mm-hmm.
call they can call men all types of names, scrubs, and
Mm-hmm.
F song, broke nigga,
Mm-hmm.
hit me up. I know that's right. So, and I know you said you don't get into all of the the I do it, we do it is as well, but there is a sense to that. Whereas I never, and people have told me as well, like my delivery is harsh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know no other way but to tell the truth. Whether I'm telling the truth about myself or I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
the truth about a person. So, I think that, we are living in a softer world than, I grew up in, because, people were able to take criticism and, not be, not jump off a cliff, or, not slit their wrist and make the necessary changes. But today we live in a society where, wait, you can't say that about people. I'll never forget. I never forget. This is like my daughter. She was
Mm-hmm.
3 years old, 2 years old, and her mother's
Mm-hmm.
best friend came to the door, and my daughter took one look at her and said, "You're fat," and her mama said, "Don't, don't."
but I'm like, she told the truth. So, and it's a harsh truth. And I was like, well, maybe she needed to hear that. Maybe that will help her. And it's not about body shaming. That's about getting healthy, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
people say, okay, well, don't, that's body shaming. No, being overweight, which is also something that's we black men and women, oh, well, you're thick, she's thick. A lot of that is unhealthiness. But
Mm-hmm.
we become to accept that abnormality or dysfunction. Another thing, one more thing, and I'll let you answer the question because this one will get to.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen Amerte, I said. Kristen Amerte said, there is no way to be healthy in a sick society. And you mentioned, earlier about, black men a long time ago had to their women had to come get their checks because they would go out and spend it all before the night comes.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about back in the days, but I also wrote about that in one of my books. Say, yeah, the men, because they had to go to those demeaning jobs and be talked to bad by that demeaning white person who may be able to come to their home and take their
Mm-hmm.
wives or take their daughters, and they couldn't do anything. So I don't say it's right that they went out and got drunk or went out and tried to escape the reality, but the reality was we have grown up in this sick society, both black men and black women. So how could we expect to be healthy considering even now, even watching George Floyd get
Mm-hmm.
on TV with no that's trauma. That's modern day trauma today. Watching all of these things that are still happening to us. So how can we be healthy in this sick society?
So the best way that I can answer that is to say this. I'll use the example you just gave, where they were going to these demeaning jobs. The biggest issue that we have when it comes to relationships is we're not fully embracing the differences that each person that we're bringing. And I'm just talking in terms of heterosexual right now. Just in terms of heterosexual dating, we don't take advantage of the pluses that the opposite sex has. And I'm seeing that's a bigger deal for men. I understand the trauma and the frustration and the attack on the ego from having those demeaning jobs and having to take orders from the white man. I completely understand that. I've done a video about it, so it's not that I'm not sympathetic to it. The problem is the way that those men chose to find an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
That is the problem. I understand that you're feeling demeaned. I understand you're feeling emasculated, but you're telling me the only way that you feel like a man is to do something that makes your household struggle? That's unacceptable. You're telling me that the only way that you can feel an outlet is to lay up under another woman when I've been taking care of all your kids and I want some attention when you're off work? There's no excuse for that. That's unacceptable. That those men were not taking advantage of the soft women that they had at home, who also needed to remember that they were more than just the woman that was taking care of their kids and keeping their house clean.
Definitely.
And that's what you're seeing. Those women grew up to be grandmothers who never saw their husband change, who now see these other young babies coming up behind them. My grandmother was the one who kept telling me to go to school. My mama didn't have to. My grandma said, go get your education. You know why she said that? Because she had two lousy husbands.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't have the opportunity. So what you're seeing is now you're seeing women who have been taught by older women always have a plan B. Have we taken it too far? Yes. Yes. We have taken the plan B too far. At the same time, though, if the woman has now been put in a position where she can do for herself, we got to stop with the brothers feeling like there's no more need for them. But the reason that they don't think there's a need is because that's the need that they've been taught to provide. They've been taught that their only value is how much you can afford to do this, or if the woman can stay home from work and just be a stay-at-home mom. But don't understand, your value is beyond that. Your value is in your presence.
Yeah. Or your
I
gift.
need your presence. I need your strength. I need that hand on the small of my back that I can't do for myself when I'm feeling scared or alone or frustrated or lonely. I need that. But to give me that, my brother, you've got to be tuned into your own emotions. And if the only emotion you're tuned into is lust, you can't help me. Because lust is fleeting. There's only so much I can do for you sexually if that is your mindset before you get bored and want to see if another chick can do something different.
Wow.
So
Deep.
this is where we got to get it together. Men, if you want soft women, you got to learn to be soft. And that's my issue with Kevin. And I see a comment where there's a sister saying something about us not being, we got to be secure enough to not be offended. Those are two totally different things, though. It's not about, I need to be secure enough to not be offended. We don't understand, in this sick society, we are being taught to be numb.
Yeah.
We are being taught to not let anything bother us, to not let anything be offensive, to not let anything cause us to have an emotional response. And that's why we're sitting here with men who don't care about our feelings and women who don't care about our feelings, and Kevin Samuels and other people trying to pick up his mantle. Listen, I'm not saying that correction isn't needed. What I am saying is, one thing that I've learned is I talk to people based off where they are, not where I am. Me and Richard grew up completely different ways. If Richard was to come to me, I'm going to talk to him the way he's showing me he understands. Okay. If he talks to me and I see, okay, he's not a brother that needs to have sugarcoating, so I'm just going to give it to him straight, then I'm going to give it to him straight. But if I meet another sister who is telling me that she has a history of verbal abuse or being put down or being criticized, I'm not going to talk to her the way that I talk to Richard. Why? Because I care more about being effective than I care about being right.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That's definitely an amazing point. Like you said, like what did she say? I think a lot of more says, I strongly believe we have the opportunity to drag black women because we don't hold each other accountable. What do you think about that statement? Do black women sometimes hold each other or not hold each other accountable?
Okay, my answer.
Yeah. I don't want anybody's answers.
So I'm gonna be honest with you, y'all. There's some black women we're gonna have to leave behind.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna have to leave them behind, and that it hurts me to say that, but in the grand scheme of things, we have to understand that even with our backgrounds, even with our past trauma on both sides of the fence, we still have to at some point make a decision and say, even though this is how I grew up, I am seeing that there are things about the way I grew up that I don't want to repeat. And we got to be okay with that. And we got to be okay going through the process of unlearning those things and replacing them with something else, and being okay being in the uncomfortable position of it not being normal for us. We've got to be willing to do that. And there are some women who just can't be talked to. They can't be talked to. They don't want to be told they're wrong. They don't want to be shown that they're wrong. There are some women where you could give them complete proof that they are out of line and their thought process makes no sense, and they're still going to fight you. We don't fight those women. We disconnect.
Okay.
And that's what we have to do. Disconnect. Women who don't want to be held accountable and we know they're in the wrong, it's a waste of energy and time and words to talk to women who are not in a place where they're ready to be corrected. So I don't do it. I don't do it with men either. When you show me who you are is who you want to be, you can be that over there.
Okay. And another question, because you mentioned being strong, like I think you in the post, I think you were talking about TD Jakes. some sermon. He said we're raising women to be strong. You mentioned a few other adjectives, mean, such and such and such. And you said you. Well, I don't remember all the adjectives, but they were pretty, and you agreed to that. Now, why is I mean it's relevant, but in the context of this conversation, it's not, because I know why. You guys have run into bad men. You had to raise children by yourself. You had to do it whether nobody's done it. So you develop that posture, that strongness. But for a man who hasn't hurt that woman, just like you said, or who hasn't or is not looking to hurt that woman, for a man who is strong himself,
Mm-hmm.
that could be seen as, okay, no, I don't want a strong woman. I don't want a weak woman either, but I don't want the woman
Mm-hmm.
who leads with her strength. Oh wait, I do everything myself. With once again, that's fine, but I don't want somebody who leads with. Oh, I don't need them. I pay the bills. It's almost like I think one African brother said, of course from the continent, they said, I don't want to feel like I'm in competition with the woman. Now I don't know where he's saying that, what place he's saying that from, but like, once again, as myself, like, okay, no, I want a gentle woman. I want a meek woman. I don't want a woman who I have to. I've heard it said this. Oh, a man
Mm-hmm.
gotta. I don't need a weak man. I need to learn how to be put in my place. And I know I'm pretty. That's why you laughing, because you hear that too. I need a man to tell me why does a man need to tell you when to shut up? That means you know what you need when you need to shut up. So those are the kinds of things that strong men are not looking for. But strong women have been made to be that way because of this factor and the other. So how do you get past that? Being a man who, I understand why you're like that and you're needing to be like that, but I that's not what I'm looking for. And if I don't need you to be like that anymore. But of course, once again, with the dating society where, okay, well, if this doesn't work out in 2 weeks, I can swipe left or I can DM right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for a woman to, really let that down because of the availability of the next person. So it's almost, once again, like a lose lose. Like, how we get past this strict barrier, but once again, the woman doesn't want to let that barrier down because she's been doing it for so long. But the right guy may come around and be like, hey, no, you don't have to. No, I don't want. I don't know I don't have to, but I'm going to, because if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. And it's almost like a catch-22.
Okay, so I'll start with this.
Okay.
Let me explain this about women. I want you to imagine being 5 years old. No, let's say 3. I want you to imagine being 3 years old and your parents are teaching you how to cross the street. So the parents run to the other side of the street and they say, don't look left, don't look right, just follow me, follow my voice, and I'll get you over here. So you do that the first time and you get hit. So, okay, so your leg gets broken, 6 weeks goes by, the cast comes off. The parents say, okay, we're going to go across the street again. Let's do the same thing. My bad, but I got you this time. You're 3 years old, you walk across the street again, and you get hit again.
Okay.
Now, at some point, even though you're 3, survival instinct is going to kick in, and you're not just going to keep looking at mom and daddy. Now you're going to start looking left and right for yourself, right?
Yes.
So the reason I bring that up is because I need my brothers to understand something. When you run into a woman who is that determined to do things for herself, she didn't just meet one man who disappointed her. She likely met at least 5. A minimum. She met a minimum of 5 men who found new ways to disappoint her, who found new ways to let her down. But in the process of that, life was still going. Life didn't pause for her. She still had to find a way to get up and go to work. She still had to find a way to pay bills. A, B, C, D, you see where I'm going. So to the men who run into those women, one of the things I also talked about in the live that Richard is talking about, I said that brothers have a tendency to skip steps. You immediately go from logic into solution. And at the end of the day, that is what we want. Why it's so important for you to tune into your emotions, however, is because your emotions are what's going to connect you to the who and why of your woman.
Okay.
Logic is not going to explain to you why she does the thing she does, because logic says, I'm here now. She shouldn't need to do all this. Emotions will help you understand, well, there were 5 dudes before me that disappointed her. Let me give her a break. And let me focus more on being consistent than proving myself.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, all a woman wants is consistency. You continue to show that woman that you're there. Continue to be softness where all she's known is hardness and criticism. She will eventually calm down. The question that I have is, and you have to be honest with yourself as a man. Mm-hmm. Do I have what it takes to be that for that woman, or am I just going to look for the next option?
True. It's work.
But here's the deal. To the same men, I also want you to think back to your relationships in the past. How many women tried to show patience to you? How many women went without, sacrificed, bit their tongue when you did something that hurt them because they understood you were in a bad place? How many women did that, and how many of those women did you mess over? Because here's another thing that we don't think about. In other situations, we call it karma. In Christianity, we say you reap what you sow. My brother, sometimes you're sometimes you're going to end up called to clean up someone else's mess because someone was cleaning up yours.
Okay. All right.
But you don't want to do that. You want to go find what's easy. You want to go swipe left or swipe right or whatever you do on that app. You want to go swipe and find what's easier and don't understand you probably left behind at least 5 women who tried to love you at your worst. So when are you going to stop thinking that it's about your needs getting met and realize maybe that woman just hasn't had someone be consistent? And maybe all of those women who tried to show me consistency, maybe I need to return the favor and extend that to her. Don't give it 3 dates. Try 6 months of consistency. Where when you say you're going to do something, you do it. When she goes off, you just hug her. When she acts like you're not there, you remind her that you are. And you just say simple stuff. Hey, I got that. I know you're used to doing it by yourself, but I want to be here for you. I want you to know you don't have to do this alone. 90% of the women that are that harsh are going to calm down. A lot of times y'all aren't giving them enough time. So give them the time, because I guarantee somewhere down your lineage, somewhere in your relationship, at least 5 women gave you their time.
True. I can drink a cup of that. Now, another phrase I hear a lot. I want to get your opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What is your opinion on the concept or the false concept of toxic masculinity? Or is that a thing? Let's go. Let's get it.
Oh, toxic masculinity. Okay, so it is a thing.
Okay.
It is being overused. The term is being overused. What I need women to understand is men aren't us.
Okay.
They're not us. They weren't created to be us, and we shouldn't want to beat them into becoming us.
Real quick though, Alana Moore says, I like this woman. Patrick Williams said she dropped in jewels. My man Virgil said, I would have paid for this information. He said, what's your Facebook page? I gotta become a follower. But let's go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'll put my information in, Virgil, and thank you. So toxic masculinity, true toxic masculinity, is any mindset or behavior that says I'm not comfortable as a man unless a woman is being demeaned, devalued, or put down in some way. And so that can look like men who have a problem with a woman being their manager. It can be a man who has a real problem with a woman having dreams outside of just staying home and having kids. Mm-hmm. It can be a man who thinks that women are just here for his pleasure and they don't know how to handle when a woman rejects their advances. We don't see women shooting men in the face for not giving her his number. We see men doing that. So, yeah, toxic masculinity is a thing.
Okay.
Where people are messing it up, however, is they're thinking anytime a man disagrees with us, it's toxic masculinity. That's not it. That's called a difference of opinion. A man can have a difference of opinion. I promise you, it's okay. But if the difference of opinion results in, if what they agree should happen results in a woman being put down, doing without, going with less, or being mistreated, that is a problem. No one should be okay with that, or any version of an opinion that allows that to happen.
Okay.
So there's a difference between the two.
All right. So if there's toxic masculinity, then there must be toxic femininity.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be a thing? And if
Absolutely.
So, how would you define that as?
Most of your baby mamas.
I don't have one. My daughter's mother.
So here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Now some of the women that are being difficult mothers or difficult co-parents, a lot of that men have brought on themselves, but that's not what you asked me. I'll talk about the other women. The other women who are toxic, these are women who usually by indoctrination or experience now feel like all men deserve less. I'm only going to give a man what he gives me. If I cheat, it's fine because he probably cheated on somebody before me. I'm just going to take him for his money. Yeah, I'm going to tell him I love him, but he's probably lying to me too, so I'm going to go ahead and have a side piece just like I think he has a side piece. Toxic femininity says, I know that the only thing you want is between my legs, so I'm going to now use it against you. The sad thing is they keep finding people who fall in line with that. Because men have not yet, as a whole, there are some brothers who have, but as a whole, men have not taken ownership and control over their sexuality. They're oversexed. They're hypersexed. And toxic femininity would die quickly the minute men said, I don't care how fine you are, until I find out how your character is, I'm not going to let you get me sexually. Toxic femininity would die when they realize that the thing that they're trying to use against men are now in control of, in terms of their ability to walk away and say no.
All right. And so the comment here, the feminist movement, too, it's not about equality. It's about matriarchal superiority. I'll get to that. But one thing I've heard you say a lot about women is emotions, right? Emotions. And so when I think of toxic femininity, I think of the overuse or the excusing of actions based on emotion. Like, and just for an example, I hear some women say, well, I'm a very, very emotional creature. I did this because I was emotional, or I did this because I was emotional. When really, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is just not, you're making excuses for bad behavior. Well, yeah, I slashed your tires because I was emotional, or, I did this because in my opinion, sometimes I think women lean on that emotional characteristic to excuse bad behavior. Is that a thing or is not? I'm just, from my experience, I think sometimes it may be so.
So I do think that, especially in an example like what you just gave, I do think women sometimes use emotions to cover up bad behavior. I'll also add that I don't think that they dig to the root to find out, because emotions are symptoms. You see what I'm saying? Loneliness is a symptom of something. Anger is a symptom of something. So I do think they use the word emotional too much, but I also think that in some cases they haven't dug deep enough to find out what the real issue is. A woman doesn't slash a man's tires because she's emotional. Okay. She slashes a man's tires because she's mad She feels discarded. She feels rejected. She feels hurt. She's thinking of all the vulnerability that she probably gave to this man who ended up treating it like it was nothing, or she found out that she was used or made to feel used. She's wanting to hurt him the way that she's feeling hurt. And yeah, that's an emotion, but she's not doing it because she's emotional. She's doing it because of the emotion she's feeling at that time that is also not attached to adequate self-love.
Now, is that excusatory though? Like say if
Not to me.
if a woman catches her husband in the bed with another woman and she pulls out a gun and shoots him, which I'm pretty sure has happened in the annals of time, you know, would that be an excusatory behavior? Or would it be like, no, this woman is an animal, she needs to be locked away for life because you just said a man, who shoots you in the face. So we have those things that happen.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's a woman, have mercy on her.
So okay, let's talk about this. This is good. So let me ask you a question as a man, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want you to think about being out in some environment, and let's just say this is a previous life. Okay. Previous life, someone gets in your face and they are yelling. Another brother is in your face, yelling, screaming, and poking you in your chest. Okay. How many times does this happen before you react?
At which time in my early life? Like my younger days or my days, days?
Whatever age where you would have retaliated.
Okay, my younger days, it ain't gonna take but one time. Right now.
Okay. But see, even now, it'll take more than one time, but it's not gonna be unlimited, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here is why I brought that up. What I need men to understand is the thing that affects your ego. That thing that says, okay, my ego is being attacked, I'm reacting. That same thing is what's in a woman when her emotions. Okay. When you cheat on a woman, this is what you're doing. Especially if you cheated and she's already giving you multiple chances to forgive. You keep doing this, you keep doing this, you keep doing this. It's not about her reaction. Number one, I'm not saying she's wrong for shooting, but I am going to ask questions. I'm not going to say she's right for shooting, but I am going to ask questions. My first question is, how many times has she caught you cheat? How many times has she caught you cheating? My second question is going to be, when did you get bold enough that you brought the nonsense to her house and her bed? Like, that's some disrespectful stuff, and I don't think men understand. The same way your ego cannot be in your manhood, the same way there is a limit to how long I'm going to let you attack my manhood. I need y'all to understand that is the same thing in a woman. But so many times you're going to keep dumping and stomping on my emotions. That's my version of manhood. You keep stomping on that, I'm liable to do anything. And again, I'm not saying it's right. But what tends to happen is we look at the result and we never look at the symptom in situations like this. Yeah, of course, we're going to spend more time. Oh, my God, she put a cap in him and she shot the place up. Yeah, but I've learned to sit back and say, okay, what did you do? Because I don't let you off the hook. I don't side with gender. I side with behavior.
Okay.
So I'm not going to side with a woman just because it's a woman, but I'm also not going to say she's 100% crazy for shooting. No, if she gave you, if you cheated on her 5 other times and she's already forgiven you, and this time you got real lazy and brought it home, sowing and reaping is a thing, bruh. Karma exists.
I'm glad you mentioned behavior now, because this is a very touchy subject. A lot of men, don't like this subject or whatever. You talked about behavior, like you said, the poking. A woman, I know you remember the Ray Rice video a while back. The football player who him and his girlfriend went in the elevator. She spit on him, and whatever happened, she hit him, and then he hit her cold. She dragged her out, whatever. And it was a big to do about domestic violence. But me being a victim of domestic violence from a female standpoint, like females hitting me, females stabbing me, females shooting me, At what point do you say? Because I heard a white lady tell me this one time. She said, "My father told me if you ever hit a man, be prepared to get your, you know what, kicked." But there's this, this thing with mental. No, you never hit a woman in any circumstance. She can punch you, she can try to stab you, So at what point does once again that behavior thing kicks in where violence is wrong? So violence begets violence. Not the average, not the men who just come home drunk and start beating on these women. No, the man who just finally gets tired of the poking. And you hit me again now, I'm gonna beat you like a man. At what point do you say enough is enough, or do you ever excuse that? If a man once again reacts to bad behavior, violence, like one lady said, violence is wrong. At what point do you say no? She deserved that time, or is there ever a time where a woman deserves what she's been putting out, whether it's
So I don't know that deserve is the right choice of words,
okay?
because some people will take that and go left with it.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So what I will say is this: if we want men and women, if in a relationship you want a man and a woman to both be in tune and both be balanced, what you have to understand is for there to be balance, that means that imbalance exists.
Okay.
What I mean by that is you have to understand that everyone has a breaking point. It's our responsibility to know what that breaking point is, and it's our responsibility to know what to do when we feel ourselves reaching it. If you were fighting with a brother, if you were yelling and screaming, and he's yelling and screaming, and he feels himself get to that point, and he starts to walk away, he starts to try to leave the house, he starts to try to open the door, he tries to go into another room, he asks if y'all can talk about this in 5 minutes, whatever it is, if that brother is telling you that he is reaching his breaking point, you are 100% out of line to decide that you are going to tell him when you're done. You wrong. You 100% wrong. And this is someone who has been in ICU at the hands of a brother who almost tried to kill her. If you want a brother who is in control of his emotions and in control of his fists, you also need to understand that he will first show you that he has control of his mouth. If he walks away, you don't stand in the front of the door and close it. You don't run behind him and keep screaming. That is showing that you now lack control of your emotions. Now you want to be right, you don't care, and you have started to believe the nonsense that has been passed down to you that somehow men are supposed to be emotional, but also be these superhuman creatures who never have a bad day. Now, am I advocating for abuse? No. What I am telling you is if you decide that you want to get in the way of anyone who's telling you that they're about to hit that limit, what happens after that is on you. Because no one told you to get between them and the release that they were seeking. And they're not wrong for reaching a breaking point. You're not. No one is wrong for reaching a breaking point. What's wrong in the scenario that Richard just brought up is when you decide, okay, I don't care if he's mad, I'm not done. What that got to do with you? He knows his breaking point. You're not him. Leave that man alone so he can go calm down. But to keep throwing and hitting, and you not leaving, you not going anywhere, and then he hits you, and now you want to call the police and play victim, sit down. Sit all the way down.
Yeah, he should leave. That's right. Yeah, he should definitely leave. Violence is wrong, Portia Smith. I thank you. And facts, Allison. Yeah. So that's once again, that's just all of these are very tough. And as my girl Felicia Mitchell said, we all have work to do. We all have work to do on so many different facets. So it's once again it's an ongoing thing, but I love the fact that we have different perspectives from different people because like you said, you deal with things on the things that you have experienced, which everybody has those different different experiences. So what is right for you may not be right for the next person. And how has I mentioned, the presence of social media or things like, Real Housewives or, TV shows, all of these things that we have been presented with. It got to be the perfect relationship. He has to be the perfect man. He has to cook, clean. He has to be sensitive, masculine, build a house, fix a car, plumbing, be soft, sensitive, also tough and protective. You know, all of these this fantasy land that we've been presented. Through TV, social media, on both sides. How is that deafening to forming real relationships? Because everybody can look. Oh yeah, look at Beyonce and Jay-Z, which is of course a fantasy marriage, or you see some other stars, or you see some other people well to do. Oh, but you got a man right there. You guys are living good. You got $500,000 house. But I'm looking at that. What I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. I have a Benz, but I want a Bentley. How much is that? Because they say a lot of marriages divorce because of finances and things like that. So how much has that put a damper on today's relationship, the ability to have a healthy relationship?
So this is actually one of the easiest questions you've asked. So it has put a damper, but this is actually one we can fix. Okay. We can fix this. So you, regardless of what you practice spiritually or religiously, you have to understand that there are some laws that are just enforced because of where we live. There are just some universal laws. Okay. And 3 that I don't think people pay attention to are how important it is to watch what you listen to, what you watch, and what you say. It's really important to do that. And I'll give a real quick example that I always give on my platform. When A Different World came out, for those of you who watched it, when A Different World came out, enrollment at HBCUs went up 890%. When the show enrollment in HBCUs went up 890%. Those of you who watched the show Friends, when Friends hit the height of its popularity, coffee shops started popping up everywhere. Those of you who watched the first iteration of Sex and the City, every time Sarah Jessica Parker's character named the designer of the shoes she was wearing, that shoe sold out the next day. This is to prove how much of an impact what we see and what we watch has on our individual lives. Now, those were 3 good things. But let me tell you the other side. I never watched a single episode of Scandal.
Me neither.
The reason I never watched an episode of Scandal is because I have no desire to be a man's side piece. I don't care how bad her clothes were. I don't care how much I heard people say, oh, she handled this and I don't personally have a desire to be a side piece, so I'm not going to give an hour a week of my day to watching it. It's also why I don't watch Real Housewives. It's also why I don't watch Basketball Wives. I don't have a desire for that. Now, this is not judgment, but I'm answering Richard's question. One of the things we can do is start being honest. What do I want? What do I want? And I'm only going to watch and listen to and date people who are actively looking for the same thing. Beyonce and Jay-Z was a fantasy marriage until it got brought right back down to earth when you found out that even he cheated.
Yeah.
We have to get to the point, and again, that's why I'm spending more time coaching people on self-love. A lot of people are out here wanting things and don't even know that they don't really want them. Exactly. Y'all know that there are some men out here who don't care if you cook. There are some men who would rather hire a cook so he can spend his time with you while dinner is being made instead of waiting for you to fix it. My sisters, you're saying that you want a man who has all this and has all that. I've dated a millionaire. I'm not saying I won't date another one, but the millionaire that I dated also showed me that they have no ability to have a balance He didn't want a woman who just wanted his money, but he always found ways to not have enough time. And I was clear at the beginning that time is more important to me than cash. Do you know what you want, or are you just going after what people are telling you you're supposed to want? Because that could alleviate a lot of the sadness you feel. Well, I'm here, but I'm not happy. You're not happy because you got what people told you to want, and you never figured out if that's what you wanted. Do you want a man with 6 figures, and what may come with that? Do you want a woman who only wants to stay home, with the understanding that that means she doesn't want to work, and all of the financial drama is on you? Do you really, really want that? Are you sure? We got to start searching from within. We search from within and stop listening to and watching and giving energy to anything else that's outside of what we want. We'll stop having people being worshipped. Sierra and Russell won't be worshipped. Jay-Z and Beyonce won't be worshipped. We'll start having more people who maybe focus on Denzel and Pauletta. Or, you know what I'm saying? People who are showing you what it looks like when Denzel knew what he wanted. Pauletta knew what she wanted. They happened to line up. That's why it's working. That's also why they don't feel the need to be in the tabloids every week.
Exactly.
You got to figure out what you want and only focus on that. I don't care how long it takes.
Okay. I think I got 2 more questions because we're coming up on a couple of hours, so I don't want to hold you too long. But the Roe versus Wade decision where they overturned abortion. Now, a lot of women are up in arms about that, saying, you know, they can't tell us to control our bodies and what have you. But I remember Dave Chappelle said something very, very powerful. Now, because I've been in a situation before, whereas, you know, I wanted a baby, but the person didn't want it, so they had an abortion, right? Now, again, I felt like I should have had the claim to that, but you know, evidently I didn't. But they said he said something very powerful. He said, "Okay, now a woman can kill it, but the man, if she has it, I can't abandon it." And I thought that was so very profound. Like, you know what? If she can kill this baby that I want, if she has it and I don't want it, I should be able to have no parts. What's your thought about the decision, abortion in general, and that last thing?
So the bigger issue with Roe versus Wade, and then I'll answer the second part. The bigger issue with Roe versus Wade is not just that abortion was overturned. It was that no parameters were put in place for other situations. There's no parameter put in place if a woman comes in with an ectopic pregnancy that usually will result in death if the abortion doesn't occur, when the pregnancy ends up in her fallopian tubes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, that
so
automatically be...
But it's not. That's what the problem is. The exceptions aren't being made. The exceptions aren't being made for rape. There's a 10-year-old girl who had to be driven across county lines because she was raped and ended up pregnant. Her state was still going to tell her that because of this law, she still needed to carry the baby full term. A 10-year-old girl's body is not ready to carry another life full term. So the issue is that it's a blanket statement and no additional parameters have been put in place for the exceptions, nor for the mistakes that young people are just going to make. Now, having said that, the part that you were just talking about, and this is something that women don't necessarily agree with me on either, but again, I focus on behavior, not gender.
Okay.
Women who have gone through abortions, the first thing that they will tell you is they didn't feel ready. Now, some will say it was medically necessary, and that was true. But the ones who didn't have a medical need to have an abortion, they'll tell you they weren't ready. The problem that I have with some of the women's viewpoints on this is, listen, you can't get pregnant by yourself. So if at the point that you got pregnant at 19, 20, 24, or even 34, you said, I'm not ready for this, and you had the option to terminate, I need you to also understand that these men that you're calling deadbeats, They're not deadbeats if they told you they weren't ready and you still decided to have the baby yourself.
Okay.
Well, it takes two to make a baby, right? And you're one of the two. Well, my body, my choice. I got you. But if he said, I'm not ready to be a father, the same way that you knew you weren't ready to be a mother years ago or decades ago, understand that his thought is just as legitimate. He didn't make you lay down with him. Now, if he did, that's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
But if he didn't make you lay down with him, he didn't make you have sex with him without a condom. If he didn't make you do any of that, and he's saying, listen, I was here to have a good time just like you were, and I'm not ready for this, the brother isn't wrong. You don't get to tell him how quickly he has to mature. Would it be ideal if he said, okay, I wasn't planning for it, but let's do this because I don't believe in abortion either? Absolutely. But also understand there's a difference between a brother saying, I can't wait for this baby to come and then disappears, and a brother who tells you immediately after you get the pregnancy test that he ain't ready for it. There's a difference. You don't like it, you don't want to hear it, and that's fine. Doesn't make it not true. Have babies with people who want to have babies. If they don't want to have babies, yeah, you can make him pay child support because legally you can drag him to court. You can't make anyone be a father. That has to be a choice, and it has to be something they step up to. And if they tell you they're not ready and they just pay child support, they're not a deadbeat and they're not wrong. They're walking out what the heck they told you when you got the pregnancy test. Accept that. It's not fun, but it is truth.
And Sportsman's Mills said, why is birth control taboo? But I guess that goes back to the child on both sides. But go ahead. I guess you got to answer that question.
Birth control is taboo because there is still a belief that women should not have sex just for enjoyment.
Okay.
We are just supposed to have sex to procreate. So by definition, if you're having sex with birth control, you're having sex without procreation, which means you're enjoying it. And how dare you enjoy it, because men are the only ones who are supposed to enjoy sex. That's why it's taboo.
Yeah, I knew you had something good when you started on that. All right. No, matter of fact, I got two more questions. I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
No, now this is once again, this is another touchy subject. I'm not condoning it. I don't have an opinion on. Well, I do have an opinion, but I'm not. No, because you mentioned something about a 10-year girl. So 10-year-old girl. So couple of what was it? A couple of years ago, a year or two ago, whatever. R. Kelly. They finally found R. Kelly guilty. I know this is gonna be good, right? So they finally found R. Kelly guilty of whatever they found, right? So I know that. I mean, they had the whole special. I saw documentaries. I know the girls came willingly, what have you, this and that, the other. 14-year-old girl. I think I saw the tape back in 2000. Now, that's totally out of line. But okay, so you got him with 17, 18-year-old girls, right? Well, 17. Let's just say 17, right?
Okay.
17, he was maybe 26, right? And everybody said, well, yeah, he was, this, that, and the other. But I distinctly remember when I was in high school, I can name names where the girl was 16 and the guys were coming up, picking her up from school, 25, 27, 30. Nobody batted an eye. No one in the entire society batted an eye. Why? Because they had money. Why? Because whatever reason, they batted an eye. So some of these same women who were riding out, who I couldn't compete with those guys. I know this because I was like, dang, I ain't got a chance now. You know what I'm saying? He rolled up in that joint with the jewels. I know he on the block hustling. I ain't got a chance. So I know this for a fact of this happening all the time. So, my question is, why is he made the face of pedophilia, or, made this big monster when, your cousin or your uncle been doing it for years, you know what I'm saying? Even worse, whatever. And also, You know, how, who who is no no let's just address that part of it right there. First, because and
Okay.
I'm sure you know too. You know a few people who are being picked up.
Oh,
Probably.
I can name some names today. Yeah, I can.
So
I s-
why are we acting like this is something new? This is the worst thing that ever happened, and nobody's ever heard of it before.
So, biologically speaking, I think everyone has been told that that boys mature slower than girls. We've
Definitely.
always been told that. I know that I was raised to believe that I was supposed to end up with someone older because an older man I would have to date an older man for him to match my level of maturity. Okay. Having said that, biologically speaking, the difference in maturity is somewhere between 3 and 4 years, not 15 or 20.
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So I think that we've taken that too far. I think we have too many of our young sisters who are not covered properly.
All right.
They are not covered, and it could be from daddy issues. I will say that that plays a part in it.
Okay.
If they've never had a male say I love you, if they've never had a male buy things for them, like, maybe just a meal, give them $20 to make sure they have something to eat, that does start to fill in a hole that young sister may not know is there. And when you're 25, it won't take much to do that. You can literally work at Walmart and make that 16-year-old girl feel like a queen. The 22-year-old girl will probably say, okay, I appreciate it, but what else are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have a combination of young girls who are either trying to grow up too fast, are seeking a father figure, or have already been turned out through molestation, child rape, or their own mamas, who now don't see themselves as children anymore because they've been exposed to so many adult things. So 25-year-old men feel more comfortable to them. And you have them connected with 25-year-old men who are still finding themselves, still trying to figure out what they want to do. But again, and it goes back to self-love, they won't stay away from the opposite sex long enough to find themselves. They want to find themselves but cannot be alone. Have to have sex. Have to have a woman. Have to have 2 or 3 women. And around the age of 25, you start dealing with 21, 22-year-old women who are like, okay, but there's got to be more than this. You can't do more than this. And instead of that man taking that as motivation to do more for himself, he will go find what's easy. And what's easier is to find someone younger who thinks he's a level 10 when he knows he's a level 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of R. Kelly, I think some of it is what happens with rich people. We have a lot of people. I'm rereading a book now, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Okay.
And one of the things that this author is talking about is our mindsets about millionaires and how poor people hate rich people. We seem to look at R. Kelly and think that he has something we can't have. He has money we'll never be able to obtain. And some of us will use that as motivation, but others will be jealous. And I think we have a lot of jealous people who are just happy to see that he's suffering because they were envious from the beginning. We also have some people who are probably victims themselves that never got their vindication because their family swept it under the rug because it was an uncle or a cousin or whoever. And now they're happy to see another man pay for what their uncle or cousin will never pay for. And I think one of the reasons additionally is it sounds like he got real arrogant about it.
Okay.
You get to the point where you start hiring people to go pick the girls up, and now you got them. Now you got different rooms for. Like, brother got real arrogant about it, so he kind of set himself up to eventually get caught.
Uh-huh.
because he started to act like he was untouchable.
But a lot of people are saying, the people around him. What about those, like you said, the people who picked the girls up, the people who
Mm-hmm.
provided the girl, even some say the parents are
Mm-hmm.
responsible. What level of culpability do you think they have in this situation?
I think all of them need to be uh, put away.
Okay.
All of them, because at the end of the day, we have girls who weren't protected. We have a lot of young sisters who were not protected. They were, and I hate this about us. I hate that our bodies develop before our minds do. And I really hate that our bodies develop without having proper male cover. Like, I never had to worry about ending up with some 25-year-old man. Why? Because my mama was never,
Yeah.
she never kept me anywhere where she picked me up from school. I was in high school still waiting for my mama to pick me up.
Yeah.
And if she didn't do it, my daddy wasn't from, far away. And it may have irritated me, but there's also a lot of things that I wasn't exposed to until much later in life because of that.
Definitely.
And some of our brothers and sisters were exposed to way too much too soon. So sometimes what we're seeing as he's too old is she doesn't know how to date a 14-year-old boy. She doesn't know how to date a 16-year-old boy. And some of it is, men just, we got to work on whatever is in men that says the younger the body, the better. We have men who want women to have their babies. They say they want kids. And one of the biggest reasons these relationships don't work after kids come is men spend more time being fathers than being partners.
Okay.
And they get applauded for that. They get applauded. Oh, look, I'm doing everything for my daughter. I'm doing everything for my daughter. Yeah, but now you're acting like her mama was just a mule.
I was thinking.
And and so we have to, and this is where men have to start holding other men accountable. We got to stop with men dapping other brothers up. Oh my God, you 45 and you got an 18-year-old. You pulled that? No, we need brothers to say, brother, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
If that was my daughter, do you know what I would do to you? We don't have enough of that. We have too many men who are celebrating when men do that. And we have too many men who are fixated on pubescent bodies and young bodies. Well, I don't want cellulite and I don't want stretch marks. Okay, but you came through this life with someone who has stretch marks proving that you were here. What makes you different? What makes your mama different? But again, it comes down to we got to get our brothers to have better control over their sex drive. Penises can't keep controlling y'all. And as long as it does, we can't fix it.
Well, let's put the ball in the other court because
Okay.
there are several women who, even in this position right now, or even before he went to jail, they were writing letters, they were sending him money, they were celebrating him. And I guarantee you today, if R. Kelly, with all of everything he has going on, if he walked into your nearest church, your nearest Walmart, your nearest university, your nearest corporate building, he can walk out of there today with the majority of the woman. That's just my opinion. That's just me. One, because I've been around entertainers, I've been around football players, where women literally throw themselves at him. So what responsibility do women have in that vein? Because I would get women just by being around, some of my friends who are in the NFL, and they would think I'm lined up. So what did you say about this phenomenon where, R. Kelly, even with all the accusations, could go anywhere in America and everybody knows history and he can walk out with the majority of the women in the place?
I'm a firm believer that molestation and abuse will stop when it stops having to come to our backyard for it to matter. A lot of the women who are okay with what he's done, most of those women are either molestation victims themselves who were never properly dealt with, never properly had therapy or whatever. and it's one of those misery loves company things. They're just glad that another girl has been hurt, so they feel less alone. There's also some women who are they're just selfish. Like, there's a couple of people I went to school with who are completely team R. Kelly no matter what, and I think it's disgusting because you're a woman. I'm not going to get into the debate over whether you should listen to his music or not. That debate is old. I do think if finding out what he did doesn't bother you at all, that's a character problem.
Yeah.
And in terms of what to do for the women who throw themselves, I'm going to go back to what I said while we were on the air. Unless the woman is actively raping you, my brothers, you can always say no. We have to find out what is it in that man or those men where all of these women can be around them and they know the only reason they're around is because they're rich. What is it that says, I now want to say, I'll take this one and now put this one to the side. I'll come see this one later on tonight. I'm going to fly this one out next month. What is it in you that needs that? Okay. If we can uncover that, those women are a non-issue because you'll walk by them. They'll come up, they'll try to throw it at you. You'll say no. You'll say no. And if all men did that, they would be so embarrassed they would stop doing it.
Okay. Last question, I promise. I got my
oh, you all right?
So you mentioned earlier about being in the church and dedicated to the church and Christianity. Of course, you know my background. You know, it's Christian station. However, this is an interview. I got it. Apparently, you're not so deep into the church because I think you made a valid point. Even with the raising women to be men post, you say, okay, if God gave Eve the apple, knew he was going to do it, so you mean to tell me God is saying he knows all of this, then he set men up to fail by women, blah, blah, blah. But so basically, what gave you the change of mindset, to I guess steer away from the belief that you had in the past?
I got to a point where I realized I was only following God to not go to hell. That's all that I go. If you don't want to go to hell, don't have sex. If you don't want to go to hell, go to church every Sunday. If you don't want to go to hell, you be in Bible study and do this and don't cuss and don't drink and don't this and don't. I felt like all I had was a list of what to do to avoid going to hell and not doing it just because I love God and this is how I want to live my life to show that. And I got tired of dealing with hateful preachers. I got tired of dealing with, I've had a preacher who tried to come on to me in front of his wife. I've had preachers who,
What did she say?
She did what she was indoctrinated to do.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I've had pastors who I've seen people leave the church because they ended up telling me later that the sermon was about something that they discussed with them privately. I've had pastors who did a month worth of sermons about me after I had left their church only because they were mad I left. I got real tired of the hateful women in the church, the criticizing, the putting down, the talking about younger sisters, the calling the younger sisters with kids out of their name, but calling the men who were running up to the church, running up to the altar to be saved, even though they had 15 kids. Oh, God's got him, and he's such a good. I got sick of all of that, all of it. I was like, there's got to be another way than this. And then you're constantly being, indoctrinated. Just let it happen, because if you speak up, you're not being a meek and, Proverbs 31 woman. You got to be a Proverbs 31 woman, and you don't want to speak too loud or speak too softly or blah, blah, blah. I got tired of feeling like my only purpose in church was to wait for a man to pick me to be a wife and to not go to hell. So I left.
Okay. And so, what did you pick up any new information in regards to, what you thought you knew, or what any new teachings?
Um, so I was in the quote unquote consciousness community for a little while, and I realized, oh, y'all are just the other side of the coin.
Once you in the
Let me
conscious
peace out.
community, you can never be out of the conscious community. Once
Who
you're
can't
out,
watch? Watch me be in the consciousness community and leave.
you can never
Because
be out.
so what I found in that community is specifically the brothers. I found that the sisters still ended up around men who were brainwashing them. And I found that the brothers who left the church, they left the church because they wanted to go somewhere where they could be treated like God.
Okay, that's deep.
So and I'll be honest, some people won't like this, but I in some of their cases I understand, because I did see some of the things that I did see towards our brothers in church. It wasn't right. I remember seeing a brother who surprised his wife with a car one Sunday at church for her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
She ran around the church and she thanked God. She never thanked him. She never walked up and hugged him. She never thanked him for the overtime he put in. She just thanked God. That hurts. I don't think women understand that when a man wants to be your Superman and you're in church and you're thanking God for everything that man's doing, that hurts him on a level that you won't understand. So if you now have husbands who don't want to go to church, don't want to hear about church and all that stuff, think back and make sure you didn't plant the seed.
Why
So,
are there women in church?
because again, they spend so much time being told to listen to the pastor and work for the pastor, and that's the way that you show your honor to God. And they end up developing a complex. Some of them develop the complex that they're supposed to be a first lady. They'll get envious. I've been in churches where the first lady started wearing a particular hairstyle. Everybody else went and cut their hair the same way. First lady started wearing a particular type of dress. Everybody else started wearing the same dress. And they want to say that they're just showing honor to the first lady, but eventually they want to become the first lady. So then I start hearing them putting the first lady down. She ain't all that. She ain't this. She ain't no. You realize being her carbon copy was still not making you the original.
Okay.
And so then what they'll do is now say, if they start dating other men in the church, now they start trying to push the men. You need to be more like pastor. You need to be more like pastor. You need to be, deacon ain't enough. Assistant pastor ain't enough. Now you need to have a church. You've been called to preach too. I want to be a first lady. Like that. Don't nobody have time for that. And when you keep showing men over and over that who they are is not good enough, they will eventually stop trying to be your Superman in church and out.
And you mentioned that, and this, I promise, this is the last one, because
You are right.
you mentioned the preacher, and the women who hold the preacher up higher than the husband. Maybe their husband maybe don't even go to church, but they're okay. Well, no, pastor said you got to do this. Well, pastor said I can do this. Now, I also had the same question about the women who hold their supervisors up, or their bosses at work in the same manner. Well, baby, we're going to Jamaica. Now, the lady could be a lawyer at her friend. Well, you know what I mean? And the husband could be doing equally as well. But if she says, well, no, because the firm boss, John, said I have to be there at this date, or, I have to do this. So I can't go with you, my husband, because I got to fulfill this obligation to my boss who pays me.
Mm-hmm.
That
So,
dynamic is something,
yeah.
disturbing to me, because no man should have more power over your, I mean, not what, I know it sounds bad, over your
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it sounded kind of possessive when it was coming out, but I think you know what I'm saying. Whereas
I do.
So what do you think about those dynamics?
Women are drawn to power. Women are turned on by power. Women are turned on by a man who seems to have everybody's ear, everybody's if they have people hanging on to their every word. It's something about the way they talk, the fact that they can watch them make decisions and change things and tell people what to do. Women are turned on by that. But this is where I also talk about how men have to be aware of, yes, you were called to be visual creatures, but you got to bring that under control. Women have to do the same thing, because we have to figure out what is in you that has you so drawn to power that you would even disrespect the man who chose you. Because keep in mind, no one made you marry him. So if you chose to marry him, but now you're acting like this boss has more respect, and that's what women don't understand. We're the ones who need love. If men had to choose between love and respect from their woman, they would choose respect every time.
Okay.
So when that man is watching you give his respect to another man, it's the same thing as you finding out he's gave your love to another woman. It's the same feeling.
You're right.
So women who do that have to really dig deep and figure out, what deficiency do I have in me that I keep thinking can only be met if I date the biggest dude in the room? Not in terms of size, just in terms of position.
Yeah.
What is in me that's lacking that I have to have the biggest man in the room, and that's who automatically gets my attention? Because it's not always your nature. Sometimes it's your programming, and you got to fix that. You should never be purposely given respect due to your man, the man you chose, the man you said I do to. You should never be giving that respect away to somebody else.
But that's when that's something I was alluding to when I mentioned trading the man for careers, because a lot of women will put their, okay, well, now I can't lose this job. I've worked my whole life for this career, and I've been in the corporate world for numbers of years, and I've seen those powerful men use and manipulate that power, either for sex or either just to see, okay, well, I know I can let her go on vacation, but I'm not going to let her because I know it's going to make her mad, and do things like that. So that's what I mentioned with, a lot of trade their men or even their dignity. Let's say their dignity, because I've seen, people in power disrespect them, whatever, just treat them badly, but they know they need that paycheck. So that's another dynamic.
So let's talk about that part. The women who appear to be trading careers for men, right? Mm-hmm. You work out. So what would happen? Let's say your arms are the size that you want them to be right now, right? Mm-hmm. What would happen if you stopped working out, let's say for 9 months? Would your arms still be the same size?
Probably not.
So would you say it's fair to say, my arms are the size that I want them to be, so I'm going to make sure I stay in the gym to maintain that so that I don't lose, right?
Definitely.
So here's the part that men aren't understanding. And again, it's that emotional step that keeps being skipped. I had to finally acknowledge to myself that I held on to education like a crutch. If a relationship didn't work, I just went and got another degree.
I heard somebody say that.
And the reason I would go get another degree is because I would feel like such a failure, even if it wasn't my fault, because most of the relationships I've been in, I've ended. And it's because of multiple times of asking them to get it together and they wouldn't. Even though I ended it, I felt like such a failure. I immediately made a beeline to the one area where I know I can't be touched. Oh, I know I'm the bomb here. No one can touch me in education, so I'm just going to get another degree. Now, the reason I bring that up is a lot of the women that you see now in these corporate positions, they usually have their dating life is usually trash. And it's filled with disappointment. It's filled with them being left on their own. It's filled with them feeling like they had a partner and finding out the hard way that they didn't. So some of the women that are appearing to choose their career over their men are living in the plan B mindset. Their mindset is just like you working out. Their mindset is, I've worked hard to get here. I can now take care of myself. More than likely, I came out of a relationship where I had to start over from scratch. And it's not that I don't want a man in my life, but I'm afraid of trusting another man, letting my guard down, not doing so much career stuff. And then what if he leaves? Now I got to start over getting used to being on my own again. And taking 9 months off from working out, you're going to be back to day one. And a lot of times women are afraid of going back to day one. So they hold on to what they know won't leave, because they know unless I'm laid off or I do something stupid, my job won't leave me. I can't make this man stay. He might leave, so let me keep what I know will be here. So it's more fear-based.
Okay. They say fear is stronger than love. I think I saw that one of the gangster movies I like. Fear less. But I want to tell you, man, we're going over like 2:15. We definitely gonna have to have you back, because I'm just really scratching the surface with you. But I want to go back and listen to some more of your stuff and see what other questions I got for you. But I really thank you for gracing
Anytime.
me with your presence, with your knowledge. Lana Moore says women want to be breakable but not broken, which is true. Are so used to being broken, we don't trust anyone without vulnerability. Which I think that is an excellent point.
Yes, it is.
She said we will run the college of work so fast as emotionally crushed. But
For
I certainly
real.
want to thank everybody: Alana, Aletta Taylor, Virgil, Patrick, Portia, Lamontre, Felicia, Hassan, Toby, once again, Tracy, everybody who left a comment. Thank you, Felicia, again, Patrick. I just really appreciate y'all for tuning in to the show and supporting me and Miss Allison Lee. So, y'all check us out next week. We won't have her. I think I have Mr. Keith West, one of the guys from Brooklyn. He got an amazing story too. But I definitely thank Miss
You are welcome.
Allison Denise for giving us some of the love, Coach AD. Once again, I feel equipped already. So I don't want to date. I just want to get married. So I feel equipped. Look at my daughter looking at me. Come say hi. But I certainly thank you, man. I hope this broadcast helped a lot of people, gain some knowledge and some understanding, about these things. But once again, I want to thank you. Anything else you want to leave the audience before we go?
I just want to thank y'all for tuning in. Special shout out to my platform, to Team AD. I appreciate y'all for coming over, supporting me and my cousin on this particular episode. Please continue to show him support each week. Make sure that you're following him on this page as well. Those of you who are coming from his camp, you are always welcome to come over to my side. I'm not always G-rated. I'm warning you now. But my heart is always in the right place, and so I hope you guys come over as well. I appreciate you, and I will be putting information on how to link up with me in the comments once we go off the air.
Thank you so much, Allison. You are a jewel. Great episode. This has been a great show. All of these, thank you so much. We're going to have you back probably in September, I think. I definitely got to get you back.
I'm there. Let's go ahead and get it on the calendar.
Okay. Thank you. Once again, Felicia said thank you, Allison, for all of your knowledge, time, and wisdom. God bless you in abundance.
Thank you.
This has been a great show. Lots of good information. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, cousin.
Great episode, Patrick Williams, Alana Moore. Allison, you are a jewel.
Thank you.
Once again, I thank y'all. We're going to be right back with you next week. So make sure you tune in. Y'all have a good night. God bless.